So we talked a little bit about leadership, and I think, if I'm understanding you correctly, one of the things that you're saying is that what's really important is that the CISO understands the individual value that it gives to the different board members, and that they're really focused on trying to communicate that on a personal one-to-one level, because trying to communicate and saying the board is just one entity and communicating in that way is not going to get anybody's attention. So that importance of that personal relationships, that importance of communication, individuals demonstrate individual value is important. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a kind of shift, I think, from really the CISO just getting on and doing their job. So I remember, we talked earlier about this firefighting. So a CISO comes into a role, has to crack on, is very much in the trenches, so it's a case of, well, I've got all of this work to do, so I really can't see the wood for seeing the trees, but it is, again, that shift of starting off with, this is what, I'm here to do, but fundamentally I want to learn about you rather than to tell you all about me.
Right. I mean, that's how you influence people.
Absolutely.
That's how you create rapport with people, is listening to them, and that's how you build trust.
And using the language, absolutely, the phrases and the language that they're
how
using.
How are they motivated? Yeah. How do I represent what I'm trying to say in a way that's going to actually match with their motivational styles as well?
Absolutely. And also being genuinely interested in what it is that they do. So how can I help you?
Absolutely.
Because then it's that reciprocity, or however you say that. I always get that word wrong, but it's just that whole kind of, let's help one another. Yeah. So if I'm there making an offer to you, as in, like, let me help you, tell me what it is that you can need, it's much more likely,
more engaging, isn't
exactly.
it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're much more likely to keep them on your side if they, sadly, I mean, people are quite think about themselves, so if they can see personal value in engaging with you, you're much more likely to get the outcome that you need.
Yeah, and it's building the trust, so building the trust, and trust is so important.
It is so important, yeah.
With so much, especially now with us going into the fourth industrial revolution, we're on the cusp of it now, but this whole kind of era of fakeness, what is real?
This is it.
It's just, you've got to be able to build that trust as an individual in your organization, with the stakeholders, with your team, but also externally as well, with your clients and customers, and also your potential new recruits.
It's interesting, because I think one of the things that we've certainly seen is security professionals, CISOs, being used as a marketing asset, being used as a mechanism to both, sometimes internally, but externally, saying we are a secure organisation, this matters.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to see more of that. I know some CISOs have that in their remit. Yeah.
Hence the fact that we run this podcast. I mean,
absolutely.
This is great, really. But it's a really, really useful asset for teams to actually use their CISOs to prove to everybody that we actually take security seriously. It matters in our organisation. It is an essential part of our makeup that we are going to operate in this way. We're seeing that, you heard some of the banks in the US saying that they view risks around cybersecurity on par with a global recession. So it makes complete and utter sense to use your CISOs and to use your security professionals in this way, right?
Yep, absolutely. It's a board level, it's on the agenda. Risks, cybersecurity, cyber risk is right up there as a primary issue for the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's getting, is it tougher for a CISO now, or is it easier for a CISO now than it was, say, 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, what's your view?
I think it's tougher. It's tougher because the attacks are coming at us. So we've got attacks externally from state-sponsored attackers or from cyber criminals, and then we've got compliance and regulation internally, so the internal breaches and things like that. Some are inadvertent, but there's just so many more, and we've got so much more regulation on a global scale. Most of us operate on a global basis, so there's so much to navigate. And the cyber criminals and the gangs out there are doing a really good job. They're innovative.
They're incredibly innovative, arguably more agile and innovative than the security teams, which is why in some ways we've got the problem.
They are, but to be fair, our job is not the same. So they've only got to find one way in.
Yeah.
But
True,
you know, so
yeah.
it's, you know, our job is to defend really. And yes, there are people within our organizations that will go out and infiltrate and attack and penetrate and things like that. But our job is mostly to defend. So it's not the same thing.
No.
The attackers have an asymmetric advantage over us. But it is interesting how, you know, I'm seeing our environment progress, I think. And it's not just a case of attack and disruption and things like that. You know, all of these ways are being used as in some ways like warfare. I think so. You know, and this is why sometimes I'll talk to businesses about language and things like that. You know, so are we at war? Are we at war or not? If we are at war, then fine, let's use the language of warfare. But if we're not at war, then let's not use the language of warfare.
It's got to be proportionate as well. Because I've seen this a few times where, you know, if you're constantly going to say, right, everything's, you know, if you try and use too much negative language too much of the time, when you really need it, you're not going to get the influence. This
is it. The scaremongering. You know, so back to FUD. You know, a little bit works. Yeah, but only a tiny bit.
You use it. You don't want to be the boy who cried wolf.
Absolutely,
this is what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's you can itch the scratch, but it's just like you don't want to.
Be careful. Be careful how you use
Absolutely.
it, because when you really need it, if you've used it too many times, you're not going to get any kind of influence when you need it the most.
Yes, absolutely. So it's challenging. So I do see it being harder because the environment is developing. The
environment's harder. Yeah. Although surely the role of the CISO has been taken much more seriously than it was by the board. I mean, I think that's true to say. No.
It's yes. We are evolving, so more CISOs are being appointed. You know, so some for the first time in these large organizations.
Right.
But sometimes it's just a title.
Sure.
You know, so they're not empowered, so they don't have a budget necessarily, or they don't have the resources.
The role's misunderstood. They know they need one, but they don't know quite why they need one or what they're going to do with one they hire.
Yeah. Right. And it's kind of satisfying stakeholders or regulators and things like that. Exactly. So it's just, which comes back down to, is it compliance? You know, or is it best practice? You know, is it because we want to do the right thing and actually protect our organisation? Or just tick the box? You know, so and obviously, you know, for me, it has to be about doing the right thing and best practice to secure your organisation and protect your shareholders and things like that, and the viability of the business. But you also need to satisfy the regulators.
I don't know whether it's an indicator that the average tenure is quite short for a CISO as to whether they're being treated in the correct way inside the organisations. Possibly it is.
It depends. So each organisation is different, but a lot of the CISOs that I'll work with will. Many of them will be talking about leaving the industry altogether. Really? So they are burnt out. Yeah.
And yet they're probably relatively new to the CISO roles.
Well, this is it. So it's, wow. And a lot of them also go into startups. So a lot of them go into startups because it's easier for them to actually do their job. Or some CISOs will actually go and start their own business or take a consulting role. So there are a lot of changes that I'm seeing when it comes to a CISO. Or many of them will go and position themselves as non-executive directors. Sure. They need to work. They're passionate about what they do.
Right.
Because it does attract a very passionate individual who cares enormously.
Right.
But fundamentally, they want to be able to do their job. And where we are now, increasingly it's becoming harder for them to actually do their job due to, I think, the lack of understanding within the organisation.
Is that, but partly, I suppose, the lack of understanding has to be attributed to it's the CISO's role to drive up that education and awareness as well, as much as anything, right?
Well, I would say that too. So it's not a case of playing the victim, which is easily done. And I think to a certain extent we do play the victim in security. So whether that's from the leadership perspective or whether that's from the female perspective, you know, poor me, I'm a victim, this is all terrible, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But it is about moving beyond that, and it is a case of leveling up. So it's just like, fine, I need to skill myself up. I need to be able to look for signals within an organization where I can. I'm confident that that is the right environment for me. I am going to be able to make the changes and deal with the challenges that I need to do. So that's kind of what I see. So it's very much skilling up, leveling up, and in being empowered as opposed to disempowered. And also this waiting for permission. You know, I meet so many CISOs, CSOs, and also women who are waiting for permission, you know, or not thinking.
Explain to me what you mean by that. What do you mean by waiting for permission? Explain what you mean by that.
I think because we're not allowed to get things wrong. So we're almost like the fifth emergency service. So it's very much a case of, well, if we do get it wrong, if we do fail, then that's going to be our head on the chopping block. That's going to be us out of a job.
Right.